Evening, St Helens Primary School. Mr. Chappell here, back for story time with you all. And obviously last week we started and finished the Giraffe, the Pelly and Me. And this week we've got another Ronald Dahl story called The Twits. Some of you may have read The Twits before. And it's a great story. So I'm going to read the first couple of chapters. And then obviously tomorrow Mr. Spens will follow through with the next bit as well. So chapter 1, Hairy Faces. What? A lot of hairy-faced men there are around nowadays. When a man grows hair all over his face, it's impossible to tell what he really looks like. Perhaps that's why he does it. He'd rather you didn't know. Then there's a problem of washing. When the very hairy one wash their faces, it must be as big as a job when you and I wash their hair on our heads. So what I want to know is this. How often do all these hairy-faced men wash their faces? Is it only once a week, like us on Sunday nights? Do they shampoo it? Do they use a hairdryer? Do they rub hair tonic to stop their faces from going bald? Do they go to a barber to have their hairy faces cut and trimmed? Or do they do it themselves in front of their bathroom mirror with nail scissors? I don't know. But next time you see a man with a hairy face, which would probably be as soon as you step out your front door, maybe you will look at him more closely and start wondering about some of these things. Chapter 2, Mr. Twit. Mr. Twit was one of these very hairy-faced men. The whole of his face, except for his forehead, his eyes and his nose, was covered with thick hairs. Mr. Twit there, look at his thick beard. Mr. Twit felt that this hairiness made him look terrifically wise and grand. But in truth, he was neither of these things. Mr. Twit was a twit. He was born a twit, and now at the age of 60, he was a bigger twit than ever. The hair on Mr. Twit's face didn't grow smooth and matted as it does on most hairy-faced men. It grew in spikes that stuck out straight like a bristle of a nail brush. And how often did Mr. Twit wash this bristly, nail-brushy face of his? The answer is never. Not even on Sundays. He hadn't washed it for years. That beard's not been washed for years and years. Chapter 3, Dirty Beards. As you know, an ordinary unhairy face like yours or mine simply gets a bit smudgy if it is not washed often enough. And there's nothing so awful about that. But a hairy face is a very different matter. Things cling to hairs, especially food. Things like gravy go right in amongst the hairs and stay there. You and I can wipe our smooth faces with a flannel, and we can quickly look more or less all right again. But the hairy man cannot do that. We can also, if we are careful, eat our meals without spreading food all over our faces, but not the hairy man. Watch carefully next time you see a hairy man eating his lunch, and you will notice that even if he opens his mouth very wide, it is impossible for him to get a spoonful of beef stew or ice cream and chocolate sauce into it without leaving some of it on his hair. You see, Mr. Twit didn't even bother to open his mouth wide when he ate. As a result, and because he never washed, there were always hundreds of bits of old breakfast and lunches and suppers sticking to the hairs around his face. They weren't big bits, mind you, because he used to wipe those off with the back of his hand or on his sleeve when he was eating. But if you look closely, and looked closely at Mr. Twit, not that you ever wanted to, you would see tiny specks of dried up scrambled eggs stuck to the hairs, and spinach and tomato ketchup and fish fingers and minced chicken livers and all the disgusting things Mr. Twit liked to eat. Example of Mr. Twit's beard there. All those different things stuck in his beard, just there, all those different things stuck. If you looked closer still, hold your nose, ladies and gentlemen. If you peered deeper into the moustachy bristles sticking over his upper lip, you would probably see much larger objects that had escaped the wipe of his hand, things that had been there for months and months, like a piece of maggoty green cheese or a mouldy old cornflake, or even the slimy tail of a tin sardine. Because of all of this, Mr. Twit never really went hungry. By sticking out his tongue and curling it sideways to explore the hairy jungle, he was always able to find a tasty morsel here and there to nibble on. What I'm trying to tell you is that Mr. Twit was a foul and smelly man. He was also an extremely horrid old man, as you will find out in a moment. Let's just leave it there for today. So Mr. Twit, not a very nice man with this very bushy beard filled with food in there. I wonder what adventure he'll be up to. Take care, everybody. See you soon. Bye-bye.